Okay, so I've been doing a series of tutorials to help a student that wants to do kind of an homage to Tron, and to build a light cycle that's part Tron and part Tron Legacy. So it kind of moves a little like both. Um, the important part here, in fact, maybe is the example scene that I've created. So you can see the cycle it just is moving down a path, but it also has a little bit of banking, right? So is it, instead of moving in a perfectly straight line as it did in the original Tron, in the second film, there's a little more freedom to what the light cycle can do. And of course, if you're going to do a light cycle, it has to have a little trailer behind it. But the problem here is, so let's look right here. So as we go into the turn, more like a realistic, real world motorcycle, the light cycle leans in right to the turn, so it banks. And this creates problems for how to do that little energy blockade light cycle trail, that comes off the end of the bike. So how to make that work and how to create that, right, so that it runs with the animation. So let's look at a couple examples here. So the first thing, I've created an example scene here. Again, we just have a sweep object, right? So I've created let's turn that off. So I have a path and I have a rectangle, and I could animate the parameters of the sweep so that the end growth maybe starts here at the beginning, right? And it would follow the bike. The problem is there's not really a good way to make this lean in and out, this top part. There is a rotation graph down here where you can kind of do that, but trying to get it so that you would put little keyframes in here into this chart that would match exactly the way the bike is doing it would be maybe next to impossible. So I actually the student asked me about how I would do that, and I'm like, I'm not sure. So I did a few tests, and I'll show this here in my little my next scene. But before we do that, I just want to explain, in case anyone has not used the loft object, right? So underneath our generators here, we have the loft, and if you look at the little icon, it kind of shows you. I have to say I like Cinema 4D's icons, always did. Where you can see these little white lines are created and a generated surface, a green surface, is created between those. So let's go ahead and put a loft in here. And I've created two rectangles. I had the first one, and I just duplicated it and added more. In fact, let's just right now, I'll just put it the same. So these two are exactly the same. I'm going to put them into the loft. So there's the first one, and there's the second one. And I get this surface in between. In fact, I'm going to turn off the caps because I don't really want them in this instance. Ta-da, right? So I have this paper thin wall. The nice thing about this is, let's go to rectangle number 2. If I up the point, or the radius here, you can see, right, that this moves in between the two. You might want to get to the point where you come in here and adjust these to be, is it that way? Or let's see, I'm just going to go back to the object. So I can add subdivisions along the edge. This is what I was looking for, right? So I can get a nice smooth transition between all those, right? So it just draws a path in between those. Again, there's a lot of flexibility here because I could take this object and I could rotate it, right? So I can make an interesting, oops, I just wanted to rotate on the Y there. Okay. Right, so you can build a surface from that. So let's just, if you have not used the loft before, that's important to what we're going to do in this next little example. So instead of showing this directly with the cycle, I'll eventually go to that file. but I wanted to do like a clean little example. So let's just imagine that the rectangle or the cube here moving along the path is the example of the light cycle, right? And we want the energy to come out of the backside of it, but we don't want it, maybe in this example, what we want to do is, have this come straight out of the back. We want kind of like an energy ribbon, but I don't want it at the top or the bottom, just in this example, right? For the light cycle, that's probably what you want to do. So how to construct that loft when, if I took this spline and I duplicated it, let's just go into object mode. All right, so I could take these two and I would create a, there it is, a loft, and I'll put both of these in there. Right, and this gives me that ribbon. And then giving it more subdivision so it's nice and smooth. But you can see that's not following, it's not tilting in and out like my little cube here, right? So how do I generate that? Oops, and let's put this down here for now. Right, so how do I generate a spline here at the top? Well, if you've not used it before, the tracer object is very helpful. So the tracer object will follow the path of something. In fact, I'm going to select the cube, and I'm going to come down here where the cloner lives and just click on the tracer. Right, and the tracer right now, because I had it selected, is going to trace the path of the of the cube, right, along here. And you can see a few areas where it gets a little dodgy right in there. And that just deals with how many sample steps are in there. And oops, in fact, that's not really what I want. I want to, let's change the type from linear to cubic. And let's do uniform. And you can see I now have a bunch of sampled points, so I get a smoother curve out of it. All right, so already that's pretty cool, right? That can be used for many, many, many different things on the tracer object. But right now, it's tracing the points of the object, but that's not quite where I want the energy ribbon to emanate from. I want it to come from, as I said, a little in from the top and the bottom and right down the middle, basically. So how do we do that? I'm just going to go into one of my little side views here. And you can generate these points any number of ways. I'm just going to draw a curve. So I'm going to go into point mode. I'm going to grab the spline pen, and I'm just going to click once and click twice. In fact, actually, maybe to give that idea, this is, what I want is it to generate a line like between here, but really what I need is a path. The tracer object does trace this point and this point. In fact, maybe I will do it like this, just so you can see the issue that we're going to run into. Okay, so let's take this object and let's position it. Right, so I'm going to position this towards the back half of the cube. You can see if I draw if this line were to go straight, it would go basically right through there. And if I look at it, you can see it's in a couple squares from grid marks from the top and a couple grid marks in there. Okay, so let's take this little spline and let's make it a child of the cube so it follows along. And then for the tracer, let's go ahead and delete the cube from being in there, and let's say trace from the spline. All right, let's see what we get. All right, so now you can see I'm getting two lines pretty much where I want them to be across here. So that's excellent. But so you might think, well, let's just go ahead and create a loft object and put the tracer in there. It doesn't understand that those two splines the loft have to go from one spline to the next spline, and if you have multiples in there, right, to create a surface. So right now it doesn't understand that it's generating 2. There's probably some clever hack in here that I don't know of, or maybe there's a way to break the tracer into different parts, but instead of spending a bunch of time researching how I might be able to do that, I just came up with a different trick, so let's delete the loft for now. So let's just tell the tracer to look at 2 splines. Right? So let's have spline number 1 and spline number 2. And oops, let's put the tracer here. So let's make sure it's also looking at the first spline. And we'll go back to the beginning. And let's spin around here. I can probably just see it right here. So I have 2 objects in here. Let's just say the spline, let's name this bottom and top. Okay, so for the top, I'm just going to select the vertex that's at the bottom and delete it. And for the bottom, I'm just going to select the one that's at the top and delete it. So now I have 2 separate objects. In fact, if I shift click both of them, and this is probably next to impossible to see on the screen capture. There, I've selected both of them. I just have one single little point in there to trace. There are other ways that you could do this. You could probably tell the tracer to just trace not the points of the object. That would be another way to do that if you want to. But I wanted to make the point that you could use just a single point as an object in here and tell it to trace that vertex. If I went into the tracer here, I could position a sphere in there and tell it just to trace the active but not the vertices. But I felt like doing that this way. It helped me visualize where the line was. Either way, what we're going to need to do is have 2 tracer objects. And so let's have this one tracer top. And tracer bottom. Okay, so for tracer top, we just want the top point. And for tracer bottom, we just want the bottom point. Right? So you can see I'm getting 2 curves, but only one of them is active right now because that's one curve is being created by the tracer bottom, one's being created by the tracer top. And now, if I use the loft and I put the top and the bottom in there, I get this nice little ribbon. And again, let's really crank this up. Right. If I leave it at the default, I just don't have enough geometry and resolution in there. So I'll just say 96. Right, and you can see that's now tilting out the way that I want it to, right across there. If you get to the point where you're not getting enough resolution right in there, you probably need to go into the tracers, and you might need to up the number of sample points that are happening to smooth that out. Anyways, whatever. I can't even remember what I put for this. There's one other little step here that will fix that problem as well. So, can I put 2 samples on the steps? Maybe that will work too. Yeah, that's smoother. So anyways, a variety of different ways to deal with the samples that are there so that you get the smoothness that you want out of it. So one thing that, sorry, I'm going to play this here and then just start going stair-stepping through this. One thing you can see is the tracer object sometimes is 1 frame behind the update, even though when it's not in the loft, it tends to work exactly as I need it to actually follow that. So there's one last step to this that I'll show here in a second. Okay, how are we doing? 15 minutes, and we're almost done here. The last part of this too is with the loft, because it does have a thickness. We're just going to use the thicken generator. So we'll put it inside the loft. And if we wanted to, we could even put it with it to really smooth this out. We could put it in a subdivision surface, which is going to get crazy slow, but okay. So let's go back to our scene. So the last thing about this, you can see that it's not updating on the surface, though the tracers, it has to do with this order of operations that's going on. I don't want to explain. So the last solution to this is to basically bake the curves down. So let's actually go in here to the stage. Let's hide this. So you can see I have the exact same setup I had before. I have the thicken, I have the loft. There's 2 tracers for the different points. There's 2 other objects in here. And what these are just alembic files. It just basically bakes that curve animation down so that it doesn't have to calculate it any further. And to do that, you just right-click on the tracer, and we go down here to bake as alembic. And it will look at the whole entire animation, and it will give me a spline. I've already done one of those, so it's already in here. I don't know where I tried to put that, the new one. But anyways, so this object is the one playing. I don't need the tracer. I just need these splines. Let's turn off the loft for a second. And there's my 2 curves zinging around, and if I turn on the loft, you can see I get this thin, just going to wireframe, you can see I get this thin little strip, and if I put the thicken in there, I get something that's just, it's not that thick, right, but it just a little bit. And the nice thing again is I could come back here, it's all non-destructive, so if I wanted to I could make that thicker. Just depends on how thick that back wheel is. And how you want the energy to intersect with the bike. Okay, I've now broken my rule and gone over 16 minutes, but there was a lot to explain there. Let's recap. The sweep object's not going to work for you. We need something that's a little more dynamic, so we're going to use a loft, an example of doing a loft here. In fact, let's do this. The loft is fantastic. This is almost like a little CAD model here. It goes from this sphere, or this spline, to this spline, to this spline. It goes, there's like an order of operations, right? It's pulling there. So we don't need anything that complicated. In our example, we just need 2 curves. We need one at the bottom and we need one at the top. And they're being generated by 2 little points that are in there. Again, they could be objects. You could position, say, a cube where you want the top and the bottom to be. If you do that, just turn off trace vertices, and instead you just want it to trace the active, and that would trace basically where the transform is. Again, I just felt like showing it with the points themselves as objects. And we'll get back here to our little Tron example. Right, and let's fire up the redshift for a second. Let's see if I broke it. I think I did. Sometimes it doesn't like to render when I've got the screen cap. There it is. Right? So you can see the shader, that's its own tutorial probably. But the main thing is just getting a nice construction from that. And again, if you were to change the speed that the light cycle follows or change the path, the tracer object would always update you would need to generate the Alembic files again. And again, they're just down here. Again, Alembic is just a fancy file format for recording animation. It's very efficient. Think of it as like an animation OBJ file. Anyways, there you go, 20 minutes of goodness.